think he knows what it is, but I need to get some more specifics about it.
Thank you all for joining the session. My name's David Woodward. I'm the Solutions Design Pre-Sales Manager for Avid for Australia and New Zealand. Come from a background in technical support, some familiar faces around that I know from those days, and have recently moved over into pre-sales and solution architecture. Today, I just want to run through some of the workflow solutions that Avid has within the post-production realm, primarily on the Avid Media Central platform and some of the announcements that we've made recently at IBC in Amsterdam with enhanced post-production workflows which are on the horizon. So let's get into it. The Media Central platform, for the last 5 years or so, we've been working on basically a platform where we can have orchestration services for ease of integration, not only with Avid's own products but with third parties as well. We also have made sure that these services and the platform is cloud enabled. So the development over the last 5 years has led us to a point now where we're starting to push some of these services up into the cloud, so that you don't necessarily need to have a lot of hardware on site, and the systems are much more scalable as well. So at IBC, as I just mentioned, we've introduced some new cloud innovations. We've extended the Media Central platform. There's new apps, services and modules. Some of them are cognitive services where we're leveraging Microsoft Azure. We've got end-to-end UHD 4K production workflows now. That's from ingest acquisition all the way through playout. And we've got a unified graphics portfolio where we acquired, a couple of years ago, we acquired ORAD Graphics, and we've done a lot of work to take their technology, integrate it into the Media Central platform and provide enhanced graphics workflows. We've also got new workflows for news, sports and post. We'll probably be focusing more on the post side during this presentation. At NAB, we announced a partnership with Microsoft Azure. This, for us, is very important. We've had a focus on moving a lot of our services and products into a cloud environment for some time. The partnership with Azure gives us the leverage we need and the partnership we need to be able to effectively do that. What we've seen thus far is that they've given us the ability to deploy very easily. We've worked very closely with them on their VM stack and the requirements we need for media-specific applications. And it's all looking very good at this stage. We've actually got several systems in the cloud. Al Jazeera has just deployed a newsroom in the cloud where they've got a hub and spoke arrangement globally with all of their global newsrooms connecting into a private data center in Doha. So lots of exciting things to come on that front as well. Some of the cloud offerings we've announced at IBC. Media Composer Cloud VM, where you can basically have Media Composer running as a virtual machine on premise and have a user logging in remotely with no hardware required where the client sits to be able to use Media Composer, full frame, full resolution, dual monitors. Very interesting for productions where editors may be in remote locations and need to access the content in a different location. Cloud Remote is a product we've had for a little while where you can connect into an asset management system and storage on premise, and you can mix and match footage you might be ingesting from a location with that is back at base. Media Central Cloud UX is the evolution of our web interface for our asset management and production services, and we've released a Cloud UX panel for Media Composer as well. Some of the others, which are probably slightly less relative to this presentation, are Sibelius Cloud Publishing in Azure, Media Central Archive, Media Central Newsroom, and Cloud Club for Pro Tools as well. So our next generation media production suite, Media Central Cloud UX, we've redesigned the Media Central UX interface to make it a lot more intuitive to use. We're looking to align with user interaction paradigms where people are used to dealing with web applications day in, day out. So we've tried to align with that to make sure that there's far less training required. It's much more intuitive. People understand what they're doing and can figure out how to use it very easily. So we've got 4 primary apps in that, which are Search, Edit, Log, and Publish. And the interface is common across all of those. The apps are role-based, so depending on what your role is within an organisation, there is an application or group of applications within MediaCentral Cloud UX which are applicable to the tasks you're performing. We have integration on mobile devices as well, which is often good for review and approval type workflows, where you may have executive approval required on certain content that can be reviewed on a mobile and approved with feedback coming back into the system so that it can then be published or delivered. So MediaCentral in the cloud, we're trying to provide a platform here that is a lot more agile, where you can burst up your capabilities as required without having to invest in hardware on site. So we have seen a number of deployments where people are wanting to deploy some of the system on site, where they own that content and that storage and some of the asset management components, but they do want to be able to have some burst capability and spike the user count or connectivity from other locations, and that's where cloud really comes into play. We've also been able to leverage cognitive services, so face recognition, on-screen character recognition, indexing of data using Microsoft microservices in Azure, and feeding that metadata back into the system so that it can then be leveraged by all of the users. So looking at the new UX, I touched on the fact that it's been redesigned. It is an evolution of the MediaCentral UX interface that we've had out for several years now. It's really cleaned up the look and feel. It's very snappy. The application-based buttons across the toolbar at the top make it very easy to navigate. It's all based on HTML5, and it can be deployed on hardware on site, in the cloud entirely, or a combination of the two. So the role-based work or tool sets that I referred to earlier, they're basically these applications across the top of the screen here. Depending on the task you're trying to perform, there's an application which allows you to do that. A lot of users would have access to multiple applications. It allows for a single user to cover multiple roles or focus in on a specific role as well. And we've got a strong focus on multi-platform delivery as well, and the increase in deliverables that are required. So you don't necessarily need to have online or social teams alongside your editors. Editors can just cut something up and push it very easily and quickly. So MediaCentral Post, the workflow modules that we've announced at IBC, we've got editorial management. We saw there was a need in the market for a more lightweight but still feature-rich asset management for post-production and editorial. So we've developed editorial management. The beauty of this is that you don't need significant amounts of hardware to deploy it, which traditionally in our previous incarnation you needed to have quite a bit of hardware backing the system. Editorial is pretty lightweight and can scale up with additional features from the MediaCentral platform. So deployment's very easy. This is something that we deemed was necessary for smaller post environments. Often the resources aren't available for highly technical deployments, so we've made it very simple to deploy. It's lightweight, you can run it on a collection of client workstations, and the services on those workstations talk to each other to be able to manage the assets within the environment. And it's really just a nice, clean way of being able to manage your assets effectively in a smaller environment. So starting from just a couple of users, you can scale it up to many. You've got access to the MediaCentral Cloud UX interface. In editorial, you don't have access to all of the apps, but you don't necessarily need all of them. It's that lightweight, simple to navigate, simple to use form of managing your assets. We also support both Media Composer and Premiere Pro. We've got panels that appear in both of them so that you don't have to navigate away from the application. Within the application, you can see exactly what content you've got on the system. You can look at moving it around, you can message other users, and you can delete and archive content too. So MediaCentral for Post, generally based on the Avid Nexus shared storage. Media Composer and Media Composer Cloud VM capable. That's particularly relevant for remote workflows, which is becoming much more important as we find that editor resources aren't necessarily always available in the location where the equipment is. Integration with Adobe Premiere, we've got the Artist.io hardware, and Pro Tools is fully integrated for editorial as well. So really this is just touching on some of the items we've already discussed. Through editorial you can manage bins and sequences prior to an editor touching them, so you can set up for the productions you have coming up. That's all templated, you can just click and create. And it's a depth of asset management on a smaller scale that we haven't really focused on in the past. So I think it's pretty exciting, and it's certainly a good entry point to MediaCentral. So the panel in Media Composer, you can see your Nexus workspaces, and you've got thumbnails of all your clips. You've got some search capability in there as well, with the ability to do phonetic searches if you've got the option to do that. So the phonetic search is really quite exciting. I'll speak about it briefly later. We basically index the audio on the clips, and you can then search based on the phonetic data rather than input metadata that someone has had to do, like a transcriber, for example. We've got the panel for Premiere Pro as well. This was a big step for us to work closely with Adobe to provide this integration. We wanted to make sure that regardless of the artist tool, the weapon of choice, that we were able to manage assets effectively across the board. So you can actually have a mix and match, which gives much greater flexibility from an editor's perspective when they may have a preference for one tool or the other. So for post personas, the editor, the producer, and the assistant editor, there are features within MediaCentral for post and editorial which are applicable to these personas. We've kind of reverse engineered from the persona perspective, what do the people want to do, what do they need to achieve, and we've gone back to figure out what they need and put features into this that are applicable to those roles. So the phonetic search, this is probably my favourite tech that we've come out with recently. We've got a service which runs in the background. It indexes the audio dialogue, and it's based on phonetics. So you don't need to be accurate with spelling. It's looking for how a word sounds and finds that and shows exactly where in the media you're getting hits, and you can click straight to it. Very good for fast turnaround workflows, very good for interviews if you're looking for specific points in interviews. An example would be if you search for the word documentary, it's not looking for documentary the way it's spelled. It would be looking for DOCUMENTEERAH. So it's searching the phonetic. One of the wonderful things about this is it's not specific to any given language or dialect. So most languages can be picked up and searched by this. It's very interesting, and if anyone's interested, I can show you how it works after the presentation. And Illuminate, which is automated QC, generally for closed captions, it can align closed captions, it can sync them back up. It's using the same technology phonetic search uses. So the caption data is synced with the audio dialogue, which is a big thing for post and for broadcast as well. So moving on to Nexus. Our Nexus storage has been available for a couple of years now. Just want to run through as an overview and then go on to some of the announcements we've had at IBC. So I've got the Nexus Pro, which is your entry-level Nexus, available in 20 or 40 terabyte arrays, stackable up to 4 engines, 160T, 600 megabytes per second per engine, so up to a total of 2.4 gigabytes per second. The following three are the enterprise class. They come in different sizes. The media pack is like the building block of this storage. So in the E2 you have one media pack of 10 drives, in the E4 you have 2 media packs, and the Nexus E5 has trays which slide out, which have quite a number of media packs in them. Very high density storage in the E5. So it's scalable up to 4.8 petabytes. Again, 600 megabytes per second per media pack. So you'd be looking at 600, 1200, and I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's quite a lot in the E5. So up to a total of 28.8 gigabytes per second. Fully redundant, no passive components on the no active components on the controllers. Everything's hot swappable. Different levels of media protection to allow for a number of drive failures and full mirroring of media as well. So at IBC we announced the SSD model of the E2, an all-flash array. We increased the media pack size in the enterprise class, and we doubled the capacity on Nexus Pro. Was previously just 20 terabytes, now they come in 20 or 40. So the E2 SSD, really we've worked on this array primarily for 4K and UHD workflows where a major increase in bandwidth is required for the kind of content that's being worked with. 3 gigabytes per second read, 500 megabytes write. It's on a 40 gigabit network interface on the back of the chassis. Really designed for those 4K workflows. And you can mix and match between the SSD and spinning disk hard drive models within a single stack as well. An example of which is here. So you may have one SSD chassis or a couple of SSD chassis, and you can mix them with any other combination. This common architecture of the file system and of the controllers allows for expandability. It's very easy to add or subtract chassis, capacity, bandwidth. We're finding that some post customers who need to scale up will add a chassis for a production. They may need to then deploy a chassis somewhere else once that production's finished, so they can basically just take it out, all the media redistributes across the existing or the remaining chassis in the system.
How does the SSD one work in that structure? So if you put an SSD Nexus into your existing group, how does the high availability work there? Is that only workspaces that you assign to that storage unit?
Yeah, correct. So it's a storage group of its own managed under the same stack.
Cool.
Yeah, so you would create specific workspaces on the SSD for 4K workflows. Nexus Pro to 40 terabyte. So we've doubled the capacity. The Nexus Pro has been a fantastic little product for us over the last couple of years. We've seen a need in the market for increased capacity at a low cost, which is why we've upped the ante and gone for a 40 terabyte model. It's 10 4 terabyte drives. It's great value on a small scale, up to 160T with 4 engines stacked, and you can mix and match with any existing 20 terabyte chassis in the same stack as well. So Media Composer, just be looking at what we've done recently within Media Composer and what we're looking towards in the future, as well as some of the associated hardware. So Media Composer and where it fits in on the Media Central platform, it seems like just a drop in the ocean, but it's a very important tool in the overall workflow here. So at NAB we announced Media Composer First, which is free. It's really a tool to allow people who want to try Media Composer to get in there and see what it's about, start to learn how to interact with the software in I guess a limited and guided kind of way. So there's instructions as you step through the software as to how to use it. Media Composer has been around for a very long time, and Media Composer Cloud VM recently announced, and there's a lot of interest around that. Have got the Symphony option for color correction, news cutter option for news workflows, and script sync and phrase find, which had gone away for a couple of years. They're back with a vengeance and more feature rich than ever. The current hardware option is the DNX IQ, and we'll be moving on to talk about the DNX IV, which is just released as well. So Media Composer First, there's been a really good uptake. We've seen 70,000 users since June. A lot of chatter about it on social. Media Composer, we've been working on a shorter software release cadence, so we've had quite a lot in recent times. We're now looking to put bug fixes and new features into the product as soon as possible, rather than waiting for a major release. And there's been a lot of positive feedback on that as well. The Avid Customer Association is a group of people, anyone can sign up for it. It's a really great way to get feedback into Avid on what you would like to see in the product. And the focus of product management is to take a lot of those requests and make sure that they do make their way into the product. So 6 of the top 10 requests at the last ACA vote will be in Media Composer within the next 6 months. So Media Composer First, free, very easy to use. You basically get a guided tour when you first log in. It shows you, how to operate the software, gives you hints on how you need to interact, explains bins and sequences and clips and subclips. So for students, for people who are new to Media Composer, it's a very good way to get across it, and it's absolutely free to download to start using. Gives you the ability to publish directly to online platforms as well. Obviously not quite as feature-rich as the full Media Composer, but certainly a good way to get in there and start using it. Media Composer Cloud VM, so it's enabling MC in a virtual environment. We've currently got it certified for on-premise deployment. We are looking at a cloud option where you can basically just subscribe to an instance of Media Composer and log into a cloud instance and use Media Composer, so for individual users or businesses. We will be coming out with additional configurations in the coming months. So announcements at IBC, we've got the Avid Artist DNX IV. It's a Thunderbolt box, highly portable I/O for Media Composer, based on AJA. The Media Central panel for Media Composer, There's a new title tool that we've put into Media Composer, something that we haven't focused on for a while, so that's been completely updated and overhauled, and a number of feature updates as well. So the themes that we're looking at over the next sort of 12 to 18 months, we want to enhance finishing workflows, increased efficiency within the Media Composer tool sets, tighter integration with Media Central and the workflows that we provide on the Media Central platform, and just looking for ways to improve the user experience further. So the DNX IV, cute little box, desktop I/O, covers a lot of formats. We worked closely with AJA on this one. We've got Avid Media Composer specific drivers which offer additional functionality and a lower price point than the previous Artist.io series as well. Connected with Thunderbolt 3, so you've got plenty of bandwidth there. You've got all of your standard connections on there. It's really a good sort of starting point for any I/O breakout that you might need. Very applicable to post-production. And yeah, I mean, portable enough to take with you with a laptop on the road as well. So.
Does it come with an audio loom for that, or is that a make your own?
I think it's make your own. I think you can purchase a pre-made one. In the box, you don't get the loom. You basically just get the Thunderbolt connection and BYO cables. So the Artist.io family, DNX IV, DNX IQ. DNX IQ replaces the DNX IO. It's basically superseded it. The universal mastering is the key feature above and beyond what was previously in the DNX IO. Different price points, different feature sets, probably serving slightly different markets, but some good options available there. So the Media Central panel for Media Composer. Won't spend too much time on this, we discussed it earlier. It's just giving you access from within Media Composer to all of the assets in your system. You've got the search functionality from right there within the panel. There's no need to jump out to a separate application to look for anything and bring it in. It's all integrated, and we're looking to integrate it more tightly as we move forward. So we've added VR and 360 workflows for Media Composer. This is new as of, I think, 2 versions ago, and we'll be looking to integrate with the ability to use headsets as well, which we currently don't have. And we've seen that there's an increasing requirement for high-res finishing and delivery. The likes of Netflix are really pushing the boundary and forcing people to conform to certain standards, which is only a good thing for the industry, but there's some challenges around that initially as well. So we do have the Netflix compliant format now as well. So I'll open it up for any questions, and please do come and speak to me afterwards if you want to run through on anything Media Central or Media Composer. Questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Smell the barbecue, hushed everyone up.
Yeah, we probably have more Media Composer suites sitting than but again, they're all completely mostly, so we don't have any full-time editing, but depending on production, so our
Media Composer.
Because I mean, something like this.
Yeah, so I would say initially Media Composer first is a good starting point.
Just put a search in Google, take it directly to the download link.
Yeah, Media Composer.